Good afternoon, everybody, and happy Friday, I have to say. Hope everyone's enjoying the afternoon, getting ready for the weekend. Everybody thought that we forgot about the session yesterday, but we postponed it to today for unforeseen circumstances. So, without wasting any more time, once again, welcome to everyone wherever you're watching. I'd like to welcome our speaker for today, Koketso, who will be taking us for part three of our introduction to data and the cloud. You can say how time flies so fast because just yesterday we started with part one and now we're on part three, drawing near to the end. So without wasting more time, welcome Koketso.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, man. How you doing?
I'm good, and you? How are you?
I'm easy. You should have told me that today we were gonna be representing. I should have just rocked my Microsoft cup as well. So we could have been rocking together.
Well, what can I say? It's the uniform for the job.
Okay. I know. We still got next week. So next week, I'll definitely wear my uniform. I'll definitely wear my uniform.
Yeah. So what are we doing today?
All right. So oh, first and foremost, guys, what's up? What's up? Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. It's a Friday afternoon. I know we were supposed to have a session yesterday, but due for unforeseen circumstances, we just pushed it for today. We didn't want to cancel because obviously we found that this information is quite important. So we just decided to shift it for one more day. So what are we going to cover in today? So today it's going to be really cool because we're going to actually be coding today, right? So we're going to be working with
Oh,
real life data. So we're going to have like real experience in terms of how to work with data. And then next week, obviously, we're going to be doing the same thing where we're going to be interacting with the cloud. And obviously, which cloud provider that we're going to be using, it's a given, right? So yeah, so next week, guys, we're going to be working and just familiarizing ourselves with Microsoft Azure and what you can do on the platform and stuff like that, right? So enough talking, and guys, let's jump straight into it. So just let me know once you guys can see my screen.
it's loading. Looks like today's gonna be a lot of fun. I have to say.
Yeah, I really hope so. I really hope so. Really hope so. Really hope so. Just let me know if you guys can see my screen.
Yeah, there's it. It's loaded. Over to you.
All right, awesome. All right, so good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world joining us. Welcome, welcome for part three. Where have you been for part one and part two? But don't worry, all of the videos are still available on the Inspire channel, on the YouTube channel. So please make sure you guys check it out. There's so much information you guys can still learn. So without further ado, let me jump straight right into it. So first and foremost, just do a quick recap from 2 weeks ago, or from last week. No, this is from week one, sorry. So from 2 weeks ago, obviously we spoke about what is data and the kinds of data that we had, right? So we spoke about um, nominal data versus ordinal data. We spoke about quantitative and qualitative. So we spoke about all the kinds of data you guys can definitely have nowadays. Then we spoke about data versus information. So remember, data versus information is all about data is just raw data, unprocessed, unscanned, unclean data versus information. So information is just basically data plus meaning. That's the formula for getting information. So information is, cleaned data, well organized data, and so forth. So then we also spoke about cloud, right? So what exactly is the cloud? So cloud basically it's everything that we are going to be associating ourselves with, which is cloud-based technologies. So just like Microsoft Azure is a service cloud provider, and then we also spoke about the importance of why cloud is so important, and then eventually we just spoke about the comparisons and the benefits and so forth. Then what did we do last week? So last week we spoke about the career paths specifically in the data and the cloud spaces. So we spoke about data engineering, we spoke about data science, we spoke about data analytics, we even spoke about cloud engineers, cloud security engineers. So we really spoke about, the kind of industries and career paths that you guys can definitely go into in the cloud space, right? And then we also spoke about the kind of companies that actually use these technologies, right? So right. So now let's move on to today's agenda. So as I said, guys, so today's agenda is going to be really, really cool because we're going to actually, coding real life examples. So just a few things we're going to talk. So I'm going to be using a programming language called Python. Obviously, I'm hoping that you guys by now know what Python is, and the reason why Python is so important is obviously I'll just tell you the benefits as time goes. So for today, we're going to be taking a deeper dive into data. So we're going to be talking about what is NumPy, what is Pandas, data visualization, and Matplotlib. Right, as you guys can see, so these are really like big words in the data space that you definitely want to know, and these are just Python libraries that actually help us. And you're going to be seeing what are we going to be doing with these libraries in terms of moving forward. And then last but not least, we'll be doing at least maybe one or two examples if you've got time, just so that how you guys can actually manipulate and work with the data, right? So without further ado, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Koketso Motseothata, all the way from Johannesburg in South Africa. And by qualification, I've got a BSc in computer science, but by profession, I'm all about tech, right? So I'm a software engineer, I'm a game developer, and as well as ambassador for a couple of fan companies. So for IBM, Amazon, Google, as well as Microsoft. But other than that, I do also write some tech blogs. So if you guys are also interested about reading about the kind of things that I actually talk about, you guys can check out my website over there. You guys can also follow me on all the socials if you've got any questions, or it'll be really nice to get some feedback from you guys. But as I said, this is not really about me. It's absolutely not about me. It's all about you. So let's jump straight into it. What is NumPy, right? So NumPy basically it's a Python library, right, that actually helps us to support large and multi-dimensional arrays. Now, guys, please don't get thrown off by these terminologies and tech words that I'm saying. Just basically understand that NumPy it's one of those libraries that actually help us to actually manipulate data. So remember, guys, we get data from all different sorts of places, right? So we get data from APIs, we get data um, from news feeds, we get data from people ourselves, right? So we obviously have to find a way to store this. And NumPy basically it helps us to store multi-dimensional arrays and matrices. If you guys are not really quite sure about what these words are, I highly suggest just take time, Google these words, and understand the terminologies. But these are just Python libraries. And as I said, I personally prefer Python over all the other languages, simply because it has built-in functions that actually help with this. But on top of that, NumPy does actually help us with, dealing with mathematical operations on arrays. So as I said, guys, if you're not really understanding what these terms I'm saying in terms of arrays, multi-dimensional matrices, please do make sure that you spend some time and actually Google all of these terms, or just rewatch the video again. And yeah, you can just do some introspection and deeper research for yourselves. So what is pandas, right? So pandas also, once again, it is a Python library as well. It's open source, it's got a huge community, and basically this actually helps us to writing it helps us to write and to manipulate data and for data analysis. So remember, one of the career paths we spoke about was data analytics. So these are one of the libraries that data analytics actually use if they're going to be using Python just to manipulate and also analyze their data, right? So basically it offers just data structures. Once again, if you're not quite sure what data structures are, it's just different ways of actually storing data, right? So you have things like arrays, you have things like heaps and queues and so forth, but that's like going too deep into computer science. But for now, just really understand that these are the kind of libraries that actually help us to manipulate and draw data. I think it will make a bit more sense once we actually dive into the practical session, right? And last but not least, let's talk about what is matplotlib. Matplotlib basically is also another Python library that also helps us to manipulate mathematical extensions such as NumPy. So guys, remember, like when you're working with data, right? These libraries actually help us to interpret all the data that we're going to be using and actually plot them into a much more graphical data visualization base. Because remember, you're working with stakeholders, you're working with project managers, you're working with shareholders, board members, and they don't really understand what all of these mathematical equations mean, or if you're running a query, what does it actually mean? So what they really care about is they actually care about the visuals, right? What do they actually see? And talking about data visualization, let's just talk about what exactly is that, right? So data and information visualization basically interprets and it actually shows the information that we get in terms of a graphical representation of the data, right? And the information. So this actually can, and there's many different kinds of ways you can actually visualize the data. So there's bar graphs, there's pie charts, there is histograms, there is line graphs, there is scatter plots, there is a plethora of these examples. I would have really loved to actually show you guys how to actually build all of those, but unfortunately, obviously, we don't have that luxury of the time. So I'm only going to be showing you guys just like one or two ways of how to actually build these kind of things and why it's so important to learn such skills, right? And you'll see, guys, it's literally not going to be, it's not like thousands and thousands and thousands of lines of code. That's why we have these libraries that actually help us to compute all of these wonderful representations, these data visualizations, right? Other than that, I think that's last week's. All right, so guys, I think that's the end of the present, the slideshow, and I think we're definitely gonna now jump straight into the presentation part. All right, so awesome. Now let me close that. So now, guys, first and foremost, as I said, I'll be using a library called Python, right? And what I first want to do is I just want to make note that we have a list of data over here, right? So the first thing we want to try to build is a bar graph, right? So in this bar graph, we just have men and female actually that have four different types of data sets, right? So we can call this team
Koketso, can you
one.
try zooming in, please?
Oh, okay,
Yeah, much
right,
better. Thank you.
much better. All right. So as I said, here's some piece of data where we have a men's team and we've got a women's team, and they each team actually has a set of points, right? So we have four teams, and each team actually has a score, right? So team one has 10, team two has 20, team three has 40, four and so forth. So, but this is not really a really good visual way of actually representing data, right? So that being said, I'm gonna actually transfer this data into much more readable information, because right now I don't you don't even know what exactly do these value mean, and why do we only have four of them. I mean, what is men, what is women, what are these values all about, right? So let's actually try to actually visualize and actually build something called a bar graph. All right, so as I said, guys, I will be using Python. So just so that I do this, I'll just create a new folder. and I'll just call this I'll just call this okay. Just let me. Oh, I'll call this example. Right. So inside of this folder, the first one I'm going to create, it's something called the bar graph. Right. So a bar graph. Um, right. So if you guys are not quite sure what a bar graph is, it's basically you actually see it when I represent the whole bar graphs. Right. So now let me create my Python um, file. So I'll be using the IDLE that comes with Python. And guys, you guys can also download Python freely on the internet. Just quickly search Python. You guys can just pop it in there. So now, obviously, guys, we're going to be needing some dependencies. So over here, I'm just going to say dependencies, right? And what these dependencies is, remember, we actually have to download uh, NumPy, right? We have to get um, pandas, and we have to get matplotlib, and which is quite very simple, guys, because the only thing you just have to do is how to actually install this is just you go to your you press the start button on your keyboard and press cmd, which is going to open the command line, right? And the only thing we then have to do once you've installed Python properly and whatever, what you want to then do is you want to just check if you've got Python actually installed properly. So as you guys can see, I have Python 3.4, 3.10, right? So by the time you guys watch this video or by the time you guys actually download this, maybe obviously there might be a different version of that. So that actually just shows that, okay, I've got Python installed. What I want to then do is I want to open CMD once again. And this time what I want to then do is, okay, the first thing I want to now do is I want to install NumPy. And how to install NumPy is something you go pip install NumPy, right? All small letters, just like that. And what you can just simply do is copy and paste over there. And let me just paste it over here. Copy that. And paste it over there, and you just press enter. So when you press enter, then you'll just see a couple of files will start running. But because I've already got NumPy already installed inside of my system, it's already going to say that the requirement is already satisfied, right? So it means it's fine. If you get something like this, that's, don't worry, that's just the latest version of pip. It's not going to really break your program or anything, right? Now the next thing you want to also do is I'm going to do the same thing, right? So just say pip install, but this time I'm going to say pandas, right? So I can just simply copy that and let's just copy that and paste there. And same thing procedure. So you guys will just see, like, some files being downloaded onto your system and so forth. But because obviously I've got all of this installed and that's already being satisfied. And last but not least, we do exactly the same for matplotlib. So matplotlib, right? So guys, actually, the full acronym for matplotlib, it's just mathematical plotting library, right? So just paste that over there. And those are the dependencies that we're going to be using, right? So now let's go back to our bar graph. So once again, guys, once Python is installed, you can only these packages will only install once you've actually got Python installed, right? That you can't install these dependencies if you don't have Python. All right, so now I'm actually done with installing my dependencies. I've opened my IDLE. You can use Visual Studio Code. It's also the same thing. So what I'm then gonna do is, let me just quickly save this. So you save file, save as, and I'm just gonna go and navigate to that folder that I created, example bar graph, and I'm just gonna call this bar underscore graph dot py, and let me save that. Okay, so let's look at the information that we're trying to plot. So let me just copy this. Yeah, let me copy that as well, and let me extend that, and let me see file, and actually let me save this as my bar graph underscore bar graph.py. Let me overwrite that. Oh, okay. So actually, let me just do this. Let me get rid of that. Let me open it up once again. IDLE. Right. So guys, with Python, as you will see, the first window, I forgot to tell you, the first window that you'll see that pops up, this is actually where it's my Python shell, right? So if you know anything about programming, this is where the Python code will actually run, right? So this is where it will actually display. So I actually want to show you something that if I create a new file, and let me say, let me just create something that just says, let me create a variable that says addition, right? And I say 5 plus, that. And in Python, we have the print function, right? And I say print, and I say addition. And if I run this addition, and if I first I need to save, always have to save your work. And let's go down to my bar graph once again, and I'm gonna call this bar underscore of dot py. So the dot py, guys, is quite important because that's actually a Python extension, right? So if I hit, so a shortcut key, if you want to actually run, let me try to zoom. Trying to zoom. Huh. Trying to see how to actually zoom. All right. I'll just have to quickly check. Okay. Let's just show some line. Okay. Seems like I'm not. All right. So what I'll actually just do is let me just use the magnifying tool so you guys can see.
Koketso?
Awesome. All right, much better. So I think you guys can actually see much better now. So if I hit F5, which is a shortcut key to actually run your Python code, right? And now you'll see, um, oh, did I make a spelling mistake? Yes, I did. All right, press that, F5, press OK. And you guys now will see it's actually 9. So as you guys can see, the Python shell actually helps us to actually display values on from our code, right? Okay, cool. So fine. So remember, then I then said, let's grab our data information, right? So let's grab the bar graph information. Go back to our Python script, right? So let's paste that. So let me just quickly comment all of this out so that we can actually know that working with a bar graph. And so this is how you actually create comments. So guys, comments basically means that it won't actually read the data, right? So we're just keeping this as a placeholder, right? So remember, as I said, so this is just a bar graph that's going to display 4 teams with the actual score, right? And we want to then create a bar graph. So now the first things first is that we actually have to import mat uh, matplotlib, right? Then we have to import numpy, but I'm going to say numpy as np. And the last thing is what I'm going to do is I'm going to import mat. I'm going to import matplotlib, and then I want to say dot py plot. So this is actually just going to help us just to plot all these points. and I'm just going to call this as plot. Right, so that's okay. First things first is I'm going to first work on the labels, right? So you'll then see that, okay, I'm going to create a variable that has labels, and this is just going to be a list. Sorry, it's going to be an array, right? So we're gonna just simply say team one, and what we can just simply do is copy and paste all of this. Say team two, right? Say team three, and finally team four. All right. So that's the labels that we're going to be having. So we actually need to actually pair these labels to our men and our woman, right? So what I'm then going to do is I'm just going to copy this line of code over here, and I'm going to then create a men's team, right? A men name team, right? So let's look at the values. Okay, so the men's team, the first one is 10. So I'm going to actually put this in brackets 10. Say, okay, 20, 40, 50. All right, so that's the men's team. And let me just do the same thing for the women's team, right? So let's just say woman team and woman. Let me just grab these over here. 4, 4, 2. Right, so once we're done with that, now we actually need to now work out the length of each label and the bar width, right? So if you guys, as I said, if you guys are not quite sure, you actually need to be quite aware in terms of your statistics, right? So you have to be really good in terms with statistics and terminology to really understand these terminologies that I'm going to be working with. But this is just purely because to show you guys how you know these data scientists and these data analysts work with data, right? So as I said, so this is our labels um, and the bar width, right? So the bar width meaning like how big is the bar graphs width going to be between each team, right? So then what we're gonna do is assign x to pi dot arrange, right? What are we arranging? So we're gonna take the total length of what? Of all of my labels, right? And then what I'm then gonna then do is I'm going to assign a proper width, and let's just say 0, 35. So this is just the measuring unit that Python is going to use. Let's make sure that my spelling is correct here. Right, labels, labels, labels. Okay, then we're just going to assign a figure and an axis, right? So whenever you see like something like plot dot, so this is just me accessing some in built-in functions that Python already has, which we're going to be using from matplotlib, right? So this is just going to be a function, and then what we're then going to do is now we're actually going to build the rectangles, right? So now we're actually going to build the men and woman rectangles, right? So you remember a bar graph is going vertically, so I'm actually now going to build all of that. So I'm going to just say rectangle one, right? It's going to be equals to the axis dot bar. And what I'm then going to do is, so this is some kind of mathematical equation that I've actually did work out, is that it's just going to take the number of x's minus the width divided by 2. And what is it? So it's going to take two parameters. And what is it going to take? It's going to take the men's team, right? And it's going to take another parameter, which is the label of the team, right? So I'm just gonna say label, and I'm going to assign this to men, right? So I'm gonna do exactly the same thing with women. Copy that. Only things I'm just gonna change is rectangle 1 to rectangle 2. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. And instead of the men's team, I'm going to take the women's team, right? Um, it actually needs to also take um, the width that we assigned it with. So it actually takes 4 parameters. So it's going to be the width and so forth. So we can just quickly save that. So last but not least, now we actually just need to um, add some text and the title and customizing our X and Y's, right? So now we actually need to work around our X and Y's. So what we now have to do, we just have to, we now adding some text, title, as well as customizing spell today, customizing our X and Y axis. Now, what I'm gonna then do is, so remember, I actually assigned an axis point over here. So I'm just gonna say AX. I'm going to actually now set. This is so the set property is going to be I'm setting my Y labels, right? What's going to be on my Y label? So the first thing I'm gonna then say is it's just going to be, let's say, scores, right? And then when I look, I'm going to now also set the title. So ax dot set. What am I setting? I'm setting the title, right? So the title will just be scores between men and women. And what I'm then gonna do is now I need to just make sure that I place them properly. And now I'm gonna be working on my x-axis, right? So I'm going to set my x labels into x, right? And I'm just gonna say x dot set, and I want to say underscore x text labels, and it's going to take my labels attribute over here. So now what this is going to do is actually now it's going to be mapping my x and y values. And the last thing is what I do is I then want to also create a legend, right? So what this is going to do is it's going to create a legend for me. So a legend basically is going to be something that looks something like this, that's going to indicate and tell us the men and the woman, right? So now that we all of the coding is done, the last thing we now need to just do is we just need to actually call the function. So we're gonna create a function called let's just call it auto label, but you guys can call it whatever you want. And we're just going to say reacts. And what is this gonna say? So for react in reacts, you guys can obviously name all of these naming conventions, whatever you guys need, is that it's going to take the height is going to equal to react dot. Now I need to get the height of each of these elements, right? So I need to get height. And what I then need to do is I need to annotate, right? And what I'm just going to do is it needs to actually take um, a string over there, and what we it's a formation string, and what we then have to do is it's going to take the actual formation, it's going to take the format, sorry, of the height that we're actually looking for, right? So as I said, guys, it might seem a bit confusing, but this is exactly what you know how to work with data is actually going to be. And with enough practice and really understanding, this stuff is going to be really second nature to you, right? So it might seem very daunting at the beginning, but um, I will also just run the code over again once we actually it is all running, right? So what I then want to then do is I'm trying to now work with my x and y. Now, remember a bar graph, it's two graphs are stacked on top of each other, right? So we're comparing the men and the women on top of each other. So this is what I'm trying to actually figure out is that I need this code or this line over here is basically deciphering that I am going to be taking whatever the length and the breadth of my single bar. I need to actually divide it by two because I'm actually using two x values, and I need to obviously incorporate it with my height. And now the last thing what I then need to do is say y text um, is going to be equal to 3. So I'm just placing where this text is going to be. And then the last thing I'm going to just say text coords, my text coordinations, and it's just going to be offset points. And last but not least, I'm going to say I'm going to center, make sure that everything is actually looking presentable. And then vertically aligned, I'm going to just make sure that is all in bottom right. So let's see, just so that we don't have any mistakes. All right, that's fine. X and Y takes that. Um, okay. Right, so it seems everything is perfectly fine. And the last thing we then have to do is just make sure that we display everything else. All right, so this is just going to be, so we need to call this function, right? So we need to call this function at the end. So you guys can see it's like not even 40 lines of code, plus minus or so, right? What do we then have to call? Now, the first thing we need to call is my first rectangle, right? Which is my men's, right? And then I also need to call my woman, right? So that's going to be rectangle 2. And then then what I need to do, I need to just make sure that I have to display all of this information, right? All out on the layout. And then finally, I need to plot all of my information, right? So I press F5. Hopefully, there's an maybe use this instead of that. Okay, so there's an error. Um, okay, let's just see. All right, so let me just rerun my logic again. It's annotating. The format is right. Length. Okay, that's fine.
When it shows the red over there, is it an error?
Yeah, so there's just something I'm not. Um, Let me just run there and see what this error is saying. Syntax error. Maybe you meant double quote instead of. Oh.
Or maybe a comma at the end of bottom there after the brackets.
Let me just see. syntax error. Maybe you meant to say double quote instead of
Like the first one you have double
yes.
quotes, the second one you have single quotes.
Um, should be this. It should be the same thing. Let me just see. Am I actually using that? Uh, okay, I'm not quite sure. Let's see. So my vertical, horizontal height, vertical height. Huh, okay, seems like there might be just a slight mistaken error that I'm not seeing. Let's see. So my text coordinates, it's an offset points, right? So it should be the center, should be vertical height. Um, okay, let me just try to do this. Okay, so inside of my auto label, but then when I just do, let me just see. So in React, height equals rect dot height, and I need to height. Okay. Then what I need to do is just say if height equals x dot need to get my x. And what I then need to do is add my react dot get underscore width, right? Just divide that by 2, and it's gonna take my height. Then what I then need to do is say my xy text equals 0 and 3, right? So my next one, I'm gonna just say text coordinates going to equal to offset points, and it is going to equal to, make sure that is center, center, and my vertical height is going to equals to, now it's giving me a different error. Okay, so oh, okay, I see what I did. Instead of React, I actually need to what did I call it here? Um, this is actually supposed to be, I'm just gonna call it rectangle 1 and angle 2. Right, okay, so that's fine. What else do we use? So let's see. Okay, that's fine. It's okay. And let's just say direct in tangles. Okay, that's fine. And let's just call my main class again. Call my female class again. And okay, unmatched closing bracket. Oh goodness, why am I running with so many areas? Okay, so for silly me. There we go. It's throwing some. Okay. Why is it giving me an error?
Will you be able to fix the code and share it onto the Inspire SA GitHub repo?
Yeah, I think I'll be able to. I just want to just really actually pick up where is my error. So
Mm.
there is. This is odd.
It happens to the best of us.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Like when I was actually practicing this, it was working perfectly fine. So I'm just trying to find. Um, um, I think I make text. See, okay, am I actually calling my plot variables proper? It means tight layout. Maybe there might be a spelling mistake somewhere here. Um, my auto label. Uh, act. Oh, okay. See, maybe this. Um, act. Okay, that was a spelling mistake over there, and there's a spelling mistake over here. Spelling mistake over there. Let's see. Still throwing me. Why is my vertical height not showing? But we're definitely getting closer and closer. As you can see, I'm changing yeah,
I think we're gonna have to uh,
yeah, I
continue
think
next week.
I think I'm not really picking up where my error is. My eye is. But what I actually wanted to show you guys, oh, it's pity that I don't have a screenshot. But you know what? Next week, guys, I'll just definitely make sure and I'll tell you guys how to actually fix this error, um, and stuff like that. So yeah, because of time, we definitely have to just adjourn it and keep it there. But yeah, so next week I'll definitely show you guys what was the mistake that I actually did. I'm not really quite picking up what the issue is over here, but yeah, next week I'll definitely pick it up and I'll tell you what was the reason. So yeah, no, not a problem.
Awesome. Awesome. Can just also give us some links to download some of the libraries that you use, like the pip, the
Oh yeah,
MatLab,
so
etc.
let me just yeah, so how you can actually get this is you can just simply highlight, just say all of this, or just Google NumPy, or just say pip NumPy. It will actually give you a link. So let me just exit out of that, and let me actually show you. So if you go onto Google and you can just say let's go library, it will actually take you to this link over here, right?
Mm.
So this link over here, it's actually it's pypip.org, and this is basically the library that actually has all the libraries that you actually want, right? So
Oh,
you can just simply copy that. You can highlight that, you can copy that, and then just plug it into your thing. So as you guys can see, you can use um, Matplotlib, you can use yeah, all of the libraries that I actually said. You guys can get them here, and even the documentation is actually here as well, and so forth. So yeah, all right, guys.
I see. Thank you for the session,
Yeah,
Koketso. Even though it didn't work, I have to say
yeah,
there
yeah,
was
yeah.
some good inquisitive stuff that one can capture and learn.
Yeah, no,
Hopefully
no.
next week.
Yeah, I think definitely next week I'll just pick it up for you guys and see where I actually just went wrong. But it's probably something minor that I'm not quite seeing as yet. But it happens, guys. With coding, it happens. But next week, obviously, I'll try also just do one more, just a quick run, and actually show you how all of these things actually quite work. But yeah, from my side, thank you so much, guys. Enjoy the rest of your Friday afternoon.
Just one more thing. Any expectations for next week's? Since it's the last time for the
Oh
series.
yeah. All right. So next week, guys, I'm gonna be talking to you guys about obviously tips on how you guys can actually pass your AZ 900 exam. Yeah, I've got that. I'll be also talking about just wrapping up today's session in terms of data visualization, and then next week we're gonna be exploring Azure, right? So Microsoft Azure will be going through the ports. We'll be talking about the different features and so forth. So it's going to be another interactive session where it's going to be hands-on, building something or exploring something. So it's just a platform on its own.
Awesome, awesome. That looks like fun. That sounds like fun, in fact. So yeah, don't want to take up any more time. I have to say, enjoy your weekend to everyone watching, including you,
Thank you.
Koketsu, as well. And don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about us. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Till next time.
All right. All right. And next week it's next week Thursday, guys. All right. So next week Thursday.